But in the 50s, after bluegrass got its start, and it got its start by the Stanley Brothers ripping off Bill Monroe and recording one of his songs, and he really hated it. I found myself playing off of the banjo and using it as my drum track. I was trying to pick out drum patterns that had that same banjo syncopation. That's one thing Doc said. He said, quickest way to kill the joy for anything you got is do it for a living.
Well, you want to kick us off with a tune?
Yeah, I could do this tune. It's, I believe I can remember it. Tom Utes and I. Tom is from here. Well, he's actually from Germany, but Tom teaches at Belmont College here, and he teaches songwriting.
Cool.
And he and I started writing songs together a year before the pandemic, and then during the pandemic, we wrote every week for 2 years.
Wow.
We would write over Zoom. And so we just stockpiled these songs, you know, and we ended up doing 2 records out of it, 2 duet records.
Wow.
And this song here was on the first one that we did. And I really have wanted to do a song about this because it's a local story to me up in East Tennessee. There's a town up there called Elizabethton. Some people call it Elizabethton, or it's Elizabethton. And they had a barnstorming amateur Negro League baseball team back in the 30s to the 50s called the Bluegrass. And they did a big story in the local news there about how they had it, you know, were commemorating the team. They put a plaque at the new ball field. And I come to find out that a lot of the work uncovering this team, which hardly anyone remembered, was J.C. Alexander. She's a local community organizer and writer in the East Tennessee area. She, if it wasn't for her, we wouldn't know about the Bluegrass. So we kind of took, based on her work, we sort of constructed this story about these guys that nobody wanted to play because they were too good.
Wow. Cool.
Yeah. 2, 3. Just a couple of guys from Elizabethton, Tennessee, too far back in the sticks for the Negro Leagues. But from 35 to 55, the hottest team around. You couldn't find a better show when the Bluegrass came to town. Played the Kansas City Monarchs and the Philadelphia Stars, the Asheville Blues, the Nashville Cubs, all comers near and far. Cracked the bat, climbed the mound, another perfect throw. They took on every rival, but they also fought Jim Crow. Barnstorming baseball all around the South, and the days of segregation until the final out. Travel wasn't easy and often done at night. They didn't know a better way, but they knew it wasn't right. They often stayed in churches in the colored neighborhood. They took on every rival, but they also fought Jim Crow. Barnstorming baseball all across the South, in the days of segregation until the final out. Chick Forney, Big Red, and all the other guys, the best that ever swung a bat across the color line. When Jackie finally broke it, on the field of dreams. He was standing on the shoulders of a very small town team. Barnstorming baseball all across the South, in the days of segregation until the final out. I said barnstorming baseball all across the South, in the days of segregation until the final out.
Tim Stafford on the podcast. Thanks for being here, man.
Thanks for having me, Spencer. I appreciate it.
I have so many questions. You have been one of the most prolific songwriters, maybe in the genre, at least in this generation. And I want to ask you, kind of taking it back to the beginning, when did songwriting start for you?
Well, when I first started playing guitar, which would have been, I guess about the late 70s, started out as a banjo player, and the little band I was in got a better banjo player. So I either had to quit or play something else, and one of the guys said, "Hey, man, guitar's got 3 of the same strings.
Yeah, it's basically the same instrument.
Why not?" I thought, yeah, no sweat. So I switched then, and I guess I was writing tunes at that point.
How old were you?
I was born in '60, so it would have been 17, 18, somewhere in there. And I would come up with these little tunes. I didn't think anything about it, And then later on, I did write a few things that we did in some different bands I was in over the years. And one of them was called Canadian Bacon. It was, my names are so ridiculous for my tune. And I recorded that with Alison Krauss when I was in her band, except we started the record over again when Ron Block joined the band. So that was back when Alison Brown was in the band.
Yeah.
So we recorded that one and several others that have never seen the light of day. So
no kidding.
Yeah.
Does that recording still exist out there?
It still does. Yeah. It's out there somewhere. I don't know where.
Oh,
I have a copy of it, but
find that gem.
Yeah. It was the same band, but so I'd written some tunes, but when Blue Highway started in '94. I started writing a little bit more, and the guy, Wayne Taylor, a bass player, had written a lot of songs, and I thought, well, that's cool. Maybe I can try that too, maybe. So I started writing and just kept it up. It's like, I don't know, it just seemed like the thing to do. And after a while, I'd written a whole lot of songs and started collaborating with people pretty soon after that.
This podcast is really a labor of love, and the function is really to share the incredible stories and inspiration to help you along your journey as a musician. If you want to help the show, one of the best ways that you can do it is to click the subscribe button below, leave us a comment, or leave us a like. That helps tell YouTube to spread this to more people like you. In addition to that, we've been thinking about different ways that we can add more value to our community and viewers here. So what we've done is we've created a totally free community where we're adding a bunch of bonuses and extras. Things like tablatures from the episodes, behind the scenes content. Like I said, it's totally free. If that's interesting to you, click the link below in the description and we'll see you over there. With that, let's get back into the show.
How did you work on the craft of it? How'd you develop the skill?
Man, I don't think there's a way to learn it except that I was an academic before I got into bluegrass. I worked on a PhD in history for 2 years at Miami University up in Oxford, Ohio. And I got my master's at East Tennessee State University in history and English. And, I've always written, and so that part of it was not such a big deal to me, and neither was the music. The music is just sort of, you don't try to force it, it just sort of comes, and I don't know where it comes from. It's like, and I feel like if I think about it too much, I'm going to lose it. So I don't. Yeah.
Before we were shooting, you were talking about building this habit through the pandemic of writing weekly with a friend of yours. Is that a habit that you've carried over from earlier, from the days of like Blue Highway, early days? Did you make a routine of it? Not
back in those days. It's just like whenever I would come to town, because you had to be sitting across from somebody in those days with, you couldn't do it. There was no electronic medium. I couldn't just sit at the house in my pajamas and write songs, which I can now, which is so cool.
Yeah.
So no, I didn't develop that until the pandemic started. Really, we started doing more Zoom stuff.
Did you always start with co-writes, or were you writing solo before?
I was writing solo first, and I sort of had to develop the co-write thing as we went along.
How'd you do that?
Well, I got a buddy in East Tennessee that I went to high school with, Bobby Starnes, and he and I have written a couple of 300 songs together since we started. And he was the one that first said, "Hey, man, we need to collaborate."
Mm-hmm.
I said, "How do you do that?"
Yeah.
And he kind of said, "Oh, it's no problem," and I've just sort of gone from there with it. It's different with different people.
Can you walk us through what a typical co-write looks like? Most people have not experienced this.
Well, I mean, you schedule a time, and for me, it's mostly on Zoom these days. So I'll send them a Zoom link, and I'll also get a Google Doc so that we can both see what we're working on.
Mm-hmm.
We both see the lyrics as they come out, and that way it's in a permanent storage location too. So.
Mm-hmm. And are you recording it as you're writing?
No, I don't record the whole thing. I've only done that a handful of times. When I wrote with Daryl Scott, I recorded the whole thing because I thought I may not get a chance to do this again.
Yeah.
So I do have that, but most of the time I don't turn on the recorder until I get a melodic idea, mm-hmm. and I try to do that very first thing because the very first thing that you get is usually the best thing. I don't know why that is either.
Yeah.
But we'll go through our ideas, our little books or whatever we have, and just look at different ideas until we find one that both people agree would make a good song,
Mm-hmm.
and then we just start working on it.
Additionally, we've been thinking about cool ways that we can add more value to our community here. And our nerdy team over here has come up with a really cool new software tool for you. Basically, it's a slow down and looping tool for all of the platforms that you learn guitar on. It lives in your browser on top of YouTube and Instagram, and it allows you to slow things down, loop different sections so you can really focus and learn things from all of these videos. It's a super cool tool. I use it every single day myself, and we want to give it to you as the viewer for free. So all you need to do is click the link below, register for that, install it on your computer, and that is our gift to you. So with that, we'll get back into the episode.
What typically comes out first? Is it like a hook, or is it a chorus, or like it's kind of
really varies, depends on the person, Tom Mutz is a really fast, he writes so quick. He doesn't mean to, he doesn't realize that he does it, but I mean, he's just, and he'll come out with whole lines sometime. I say, wait a minute, I got to write that down. That's really, really good.
Yeah.
But it's different with different people. Sometimes you have, in Bluegrass, we don't do as many hook type songs, it's a little more freer.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little more open. You do more historical things, more like that song, or, things that aren't typical love songs or country song topics. So we're not really as concerned about a hook.
Mm-hmm.
So that sort of frees us up to delve into the story right off the bat.
Yeah.
And, it's like in writing prose, Stephen King said, you can take everything else away. Story is it.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's really true in the songs too.
Do you look for stories like this story about this baseball team? Are you kind of out there looking for interesting stories? Where do you find them?
Well, everywhere. And that's the cool thing. I didn't used to look online for stories, but man, they're everywhere online. And I've only been doing that for a few years, but a lot of times I'd be reading a book and I would get a great line and stop and write it down. Newspapers, magazines, I see them on TV, I see them on social media, anywhere. And you better write it down as soon as you get it too, because you will forget.
Yeah.
You will forget.
And do you look for little phrases or just compelling kind of narrative?
Both, yeah. Yeah, sometimes there'll be a whole narrative that I'll kind of sketch out that's related to the idea, but sometimes the idea is just so strong that you got to write that down, get that down, because what a song that could make, And then it's just a matter of not overthinking it, not thinking about it too much, because I think that's the enemy of every good song is you just can't afford to overthink it. Which I'm really bad to do with everything, but when I get to that point, I have to physically try to hold it back and say, okay, let's just let this flow, especially the music. Just let it go, and what comes to your mind first is going to be a good idea, hopefully.
Do you think the process is more of an excavation where you're sort of exposing what already wants to be, or construction where you're building something from nothing?
Those are both cool metaphors. I like both of them, and I think they both work. Sometimes I think that it is already there, and all I'm doing is got the brushes out, and the little hammers, and I'm trying to reveal something. But in a lot of times, though, I feel sort of like we're building this thing like we would a construction project, and just have to be really mindful that we tell the true story, and the thing that, even if it's fictional, there's a true story there.
Yep. You were mentioning earlier that the person that you're co-writing with teaches songwriting at Belmont. Is that right? Do you follow a process, or like do you have tools that you lean on that maybe might be taught at a class like that to get yourself out of sticky situations and clear up the songwriting process a bit?
There are, and I didn't know they existed until I had to teach a songwriting workshop one time, and then since then I've actually taught a course at East Tennessee State in songwriting. So there are things, and there's no right way to do it, which is one of the cool things about songwriting. So really all you can offer people are tips.
Yeah.
And that's
can you
what
share some of those tips?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of common knowledge that, taken all together, a lot of the writers that I know here in town, they call it the craft, and the craft of the songwriting is stuff like, that's basic knowledge, like chorus is up, melodically. There's also
chorus is up.
Up in the range, so where if you do a da 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 na 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 na, then your chorus is going to be da 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 da. It's going to be higher,
Yeah.
So,
makes sense.
And there's certain things that Beethoven did. Beethoven, some of his most successful, like the scherzo piece of one of the symphonies that starts out low and then goes up high and restates the melody an octave higher. When you do something like that, it's powerful, and you better have something really good to say. But think of the songs that do. I will always love you. But you start out low. You start an octave lower with it. So things like that. Those are little tips, tricks that sometimes help you along. And then there's things in the prosody too, because you're really writing. You have to know about how the language works in order to make songwriting work, because if it doesn't ring true.
Prosody as in the sound of the words?
The sound of the words, the rhymes, everything about the language part of it, it's all got to go together. And then the biggest challenge is, if you write lyric first, how do I come up with a melody that sounds like that set of lyrics? And that's what it's all about. Can you actually invoke that set of lyrics without the lyrics?
Yeah. How do you do that?
That is really tough, but it can be done. I think it's like if you think about it too much, I can't do it. But you know what I was just saying. Yeah. But what we'll do too, in a lot of songwriting scenarios with co-writes, is we'll get this lyric, and I'll start playing something. I said, does this sound like that? Does this sound like that set of lyrics? And that's what I mean. To me, that's vitally important, because if you can't make the melody that actually sounds like those lyrics, then you can't make a good song. So,
do you know when you're writing a hit? Like you wrote a song that was one of the most played songs of 2023.
Yeah.
And you've written so many songs that have had millions of people listen to them. When you were writing those songs, were you like, that's as the young people would say, that's a banger right there? Or is it sort of like, oh, that's just another one, we'll see how it goes?
Well, I don't think so. I think sometimes you get halfway through something and you're like, oh, this could be good, but you don't want to jinx it, so you don't say it. But if you're co-writing with somebody, you might encourage the process and just say, hey, man, this could be good. This could be, let's just keep going, Let's get it. Let's say exactly what we want to say. And then let's make sure that every note of that melody, because that's the thing with melodies too. I said you got to write every idea you get down. You got to record your melodies too. And I get them, and I have to stop the car or whatever, and I put up a recorder and say, because if you don't do it right then, you'll change one or two notes in it later if you wait, and those could make all the difference.
Yeah.
So
Do You ever go back to songs that you've recorded in the past and think like rewrite them, like rewrite sections of them?
I don't. I usually try not to do that because I think they ought to stand on their own because they're representative of a different time. There are songs that have gone back and said, "Wow, I wish I hadn't done that," you know. But hey, it was who I was and what was going on at the time, and you know, I'm not too big into rewriting once we get the song the way that we like it. Now, if there's some obvious things that don't work about a lyric or something like that, yeah, we'll go back and work on it some more.
What'd you learn about songwriting from working with Alison?
I mean, I didn't write any song. I wasn't writing at that time, so I didn't really. I just knew when I heard a really good one, and we had some great writers that supplied her with songs like Sidney Cox and John Pennell. Man, just really great writers, and I love their melodies and the way that they could put that lyric together with such a beautiful thing. And I did learn that she was highly tuned into those songs that fit her best. It's like she had this innate sense. And one of the things she admired most about, people like Tony Ross was the way that he arranged songs, the way that he chose songs. So that's very important to her, and she could definitely hear it. And, I mean, if you're around her, that's kind of stuff is going to rub off on you because she's so good. It's like she hears stuff that dogs can't hear. Yeah. I mean, she's got the greatest ears in the world. So,
yeah. What were some of the lessons outside of songwriting that you learned playing in Union Station?
Just, I mean, when I was in Union Station, this is 90 to 92.
Yeah.
We were in her dad's van playing. We were gone 320 days. I was from home the year before I left the band. That's the reason I left. My son was born in January of 94, and I ended up leaving in May, I think it was. But, just having a ball. We just loved it. And, I know that she's gotten to a place now where it's a totally different thing, and they're in buses and they're doing big tours, and she's playing with Robert Plant and people like that. But man, you go back to those days in that van, I wouldn't want to go back to that, but I'm glad I did it, because it really, we were all pretty young. I was 29 when the band started, or when I joined the band, and Barry Bales and Adam Steffi, who joined with me, were all from Kingsport, Tennessee.
Yeah.
We joined in 94. So, all of us were young, and she was the youngest one of all of us.
Yeah.
And knew the most of any of us.
Talk to me about what you learned playing with, I mean, you continue to play with Blue Highway, but like what was that process like, starting that band up? And
I had no intention of starting a band again. I thought that I would go back and finish my degree, and they wanted me to take a bunch of extra coursework that I did not want to do. And so I did other things, but it seemed like I kept getting drawn back to the music side of it, and I just couldn't get it out of my system. And my son was getting a little older, and
how old was your son at this
point? At the time Blue Highway started, he was almost 3. And so I got to be around for all those young years, that's those, you don't ever get that back, that's a really special time. And so I wasn't ready to go back out on the road. I wanted to be in a band that was like a local group, maybe, if we were going to do it, that had some really good players, because we got a lot of good ones up in East Tennessee. Yeah. So Wayne Taylor, I had done an article. That's one of the things I did. I wrote articles on different people for Bluegrass Unlimited magazine. And I did an article on a band that Wayne Taylor was in. So I went to see him with that band, and I thought, if that guy ever leaves that band, And wasn't too much longer after that, I saw him at Spigma, this big bluegrass convention in town here. And I said, how's the band going? He said, well, it's not. I'm the only one left in the band, and I'm not the band leader, And so I said, well, we ought to pick. And he said, yeah, let's do it. So that's how it started. And then Sean Lane called me. He had left Ricky Skaggs' band and was going to school getting a metals technology degree down in South Carolina.
No kidding.
And so he said, hey, you want to pick, you've been picking with anybody? I was like, well, we're thinking about putting this little group together, And then Rob Ickes, I called him because he had gone out with Union Station a lot. He was friends with Ron Block. They had played in a band together out in California. And so we had a great time out on the road with Alison, with Rob. And he would laugh the whole, me and Adam Steffi kept him, laughing the whole time. And so I thought, well, he's great too, I'll give him a call. And he was living in town here, and he said, yeah, I'd love to do it. So it was just kind of serendipitous. And then the banjo was the last piece. And I knew Jason from back in East Tennessee. He'd filled in with another band I was in. And that's how it came about. And we intended for it to be a strictly, or I did anyway, a part-time deal. We'd get together and play every now and then. And we did this first record, and it won some awards and stuff, and we got an agent. And the next thing I know, we're out playing.
Yeah.
But we never did as many shows as I did with Alison, which is good.
Yeah.
So
what's the perfect balance for you?
Well, right now, at this point in my life, 31 years after Blue Highway started, what we're doing now, but it's like 20, 25 dates a year. We don't need to do any more than that, and everybody's got other stuff going on, So the days of hitting 100 and some shows a year, I don't. It's not for me, especially now. So
yeah.
Yeah.
What was it like doing that much touring with young kids and whatnot?
It was difficult, man. When Daniel was just really little, the thing that really got me thinking about leaving Alison's band was we came back from a show where we were flying. We didn't do a lot of flying, but we did this one gig out west, and came back, and my wife had Daniel there, and I was the last one off the plane, and everybody else was like, and when he saw me, he didn't know who I was, and he started crying, and I was like, well, this ain't gonna last, and so that was the beginning of the end. I think it sort of affected my playing and singing and everything in the group. It just sort of got me in a bad place, So eventually I just I tried to keep it going, but and I wanted to get that record finished, so we did that every time you say goodbye. But after that I told her at Merlefest that was going to be it. Sorry, and I passed Dan Tominski on the way to the stage.
Yeah.
He can tell you about this. And I said, "Man, you want a gig?" He said, "Yeah, I do. I think I do." And he had gone out with us and would travel with us some, and he and I had already written a couple songs at that point together. Yeah. So that's how that worked out. But
that's crazy.
He would have played with him anyway. He was just too good. So
he's great. Yeah. We had him on the show.
Yeah, he's awesome. Yeah.
Well, that's wild. It's an interesting parallel. We were just talking to Victor Wooten this morning, and he has this dystonia thing that's happening with his hand for the last 25 years, tied back to a similar story where when his kiddo was young, they would ask him, like, how long are you going to be back for? How long are you leaving for? And as soon as that started to happen, the dystonia started to kick in. It's sort of this, like, it affects your playing because there's just this emotional, it's an emotion.
It is an emotional thing. And when we did the book on Tony Ross, we found out that there was definitely an emotional trigger to Tony's dysphonia.
Yeah. Where
he lost his voice.
Yeah.
And I've seen that happen to other people who got the very same thing. And it's always an emotional trigger of some kind.
Yeah, it's wild.
It is wild. His father died in a terrible fire, at a trailer fire. And then his wife, they split up. Yeah. So those two things in a very short period of time is when it all started with Tony. So, and I've seen it happen to other people too. It's just like, this is part of this.
Yeah. Yeah,
and you can't separate this from the music, and
100%. Yeah.
It's all a mind game, And the people who are the best, I think, are the ones who are able to tame that mind game and deal with it one way or the other.
Yeah.
So, I
want to talk about the book. What inspired you to write this Tony book?
I'm a huge Tony Ross fan. Who's not, man?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, when I was coming up playing in the late 70s, he only had a couple of albums out, and he had played with J.D. Crowe in the New South. And man, that rhythm guitar just, I mean, everybody was trying to copy his lead playing, which, I loved his lead playing, but that rhythm came from somewhere else, and I was like, I got to figure out what. And so I never really sat down and tried to figure out exactly how he did what he did, but I wanted to take that approach to what I played. So I had that in mind, and I think I found out later on it's a synergy thing. It comes out of him playing all those years with J.D. Crowe. And it's that right hand of J.D. Crowe that helped develop that right hand of Tony Rice.
Say more about that.
Well, that's such a cool thing. It's like, I think the people you play with, obviously they influence you, but when you're a 20-some-year-old like Tony was at that time and playing 6 nights a week, 3 shows a night in a place like the Holiday Inn, Red Slipper Lounge in Lexington, Kentucky, and you have this pile-driving banjo, syncopated rock and roll. I don't know what Crowe had in that hand, but he had this thing that he played that I absolutely still just love. And Tony's rhythm changed because you can hear it. You can hear it in the stuff he played before that to what happened when he went with Crowe. And I think it's probably happened to a lot of different people in other types of music too. The more I read about that kind of stuff and listen, I know it happens in jazz, and it surely has to happen in rock and roll and a lot of other things too. I think, the Beatles had a thing that I don't think any of them would have developed by themselves. It's like
sort of how it locks in with the other instrument.
I mean, and with John and Paul, it was the writing. The writing came together, and it was as much a part of what they did as the singing. And but I wanted to do that too. So I got to play with some really good banjo players, and when I started playing with them, it changed the way I played rhythm too.
In what way?
Just listening to that and feeling that syncopation and that timing, and I would play along with records, but it wasn't quite the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
When I get up there with a band and I had that cool banjo thing going on, and it wasn't just the banjo, but it's mainly the banjo, because I think in bluegrass, the banjo is kind of like a drum.
Yeah.
It's sort of the drum of the band. It's mainly a rhythm instrument. That's not the way most people look at it, but if you got somebody that you can really groove with, like Ron Block, Ron's such a great groovy player. Then after a while, it just changes what you do, and I found myself playing off of the banjo and using it as my drum track.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then when I want to go home, I would practice to a drum track, but I was trying to pick out drum patterns that had that same banjo syncopation.
Can you, not to put you on the spot, but would you be open to kind of demoing maybe some of the things that you picked up off of Tony's playing from a rhythm perspective?
Of course, I mean, Tony picked up so much from Clarence White. I mean, that was his hero. And, for example, I mean, our banjo player, Jason Burleson, when I first met him as a guitar player, he could play everything Tony played. It's like he had learned all that stuff, and he has that innate ability to hear what people are doing and just kind of reproduce it, And I can't do that, but there's certain things, that Tony would do, like playing a 5 against a 1 like that. I never heard anybody do that till I heard Tony do it, And these little rhythm things, a little arpeggio, stuff like that. All those little rolling things too. And so, I mean, when I look back at what Tony did and all that stuff, it's just still blows my mind to this day. I go back and listen to those records, I'm like, that's perfect. It's just so good. It's like nobody's really touched it. I don't think.
It's perfect playing.
Yeah. Anybody's ever, but mainly his rhythm, just his rhythm changed the entire sound of bluegrass because everybody was trying to do that by the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
And so by the 80s, the whole sound of the music had changed because it had this feel to it that came out of Tony's playing.
Yeah.
The Bluegrass album band and Bluegrass especially.
How were people playing rhythm before Tony? What was?
Well, I mean, there were some great players, obviously, and then, not to do a history of bluegrass rhythm guitar, but all the early players like Lester Flatt and Carter Stanley and all those guys played with a thumb pick and a finger pick.
Mm-hmm.
So, the Lester Flatt G run was easy to do with just 2 downstrokes because they're all downstrokes with that thumb pick. And there were great players like Charlie Waller with the Country Gentleman. I remember hearing Legend of the Rebel Soldier, and he would start out with this cool rhythm lick, which like you hammer on a C position inside a G. In a dreary Yankee prison. And I was like, that's so cool. And he was a powerhouse straight ahead player, but a lot of it was still based around the 1 and the 5 and then Jimmy Martin before that though had changed rhythm, and that was Clarence's favorite guitar player. And Jimmy was the guy who would do this, I kind of call it a boom chetta lada lada rhythm like this. And all Clarence really did with that was he kind of took that same rhythm and he added this thing he learned from Joe Maphis, which was the 3-finger G chord. And what you do is it's a power chord. It's all 1, 5, 1, 5, 1, and you mute the 5th string so you don't play a 3rd.
Yeah, it's very Irish.
It is. It's very Celtic, and it's got this same energy that you can impart to a song that they have in rock and roll because they use all those power chords there. So Tony kind of took that Clarence approach, and Tony really using that 3-finger chord in bluegrass is why a lot of people ended up playing it in bluegrass. It's like whatever Tony did, that was a cool thing to do,
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, I didn't realize that was. I knew the Clarence connection, but I didn't realize one more step back. Yeah, you can hear that.
And to me, Tony was one of my favorite singers too back in the day. I just absolutely loved his singing, and he did pick out some great material. I mean, if you look at he picked a lot of the songs out there on the immortal J.D. Crowe and the New South 0044, the eponymous record that they put out in 1975. A lot of those Gordon Lightfoot songs, and he was the first guy to really do a lot of Gordon Lightfoot songs in bluegrass. And he picked stuff like Bob Frankie's Hard Love, and songs that nobody would have thought to do other than him, and just great tunes, Norman Blake tunes, So
it is kind of interesting that now in bluegrass it seems like a lot of artists reach backwards into bluegrass to find songs to play, but Tony was kind of reaching outside the genre.
Very much so.
Kind of like jazz musicians where they were like, we'll play that tune, but jazzify it.
And it's what he'd grown up listening to. He had a high school teacher that turned him on to Gordon Lightfoot.
Yeah.
And about the same time he heard jazz for the first time, he heard Dave Brubeck, Take 5, and then he got into Miles Davis,
Yeah.
And so all those things he kept with him, and what he ended up playing, that stuff would influence it for sure, So, yeah. So, I mean, when I was with Alison, we toured a lot with Tony. We had the same agent, and Blue Highway got the same agent too after we started. So we would play a lot of shows, and I'd see Tony and Wyatt. I got to be good friends with them, and we'd hang out a lot. And one time I just asked Tony out of the blue around 2000, I said, man, have you ever thought about a book about you? And he said, yeah, and you're the guy I want to write it. I was like, okay.
Makes so much sense.
Okay, I said, and it inspired me when he said that, and because I hadn't really thought about doing that as much, And so I started on it, and it took me 5 years. I got bogged down in other stuff, and I had already done a lot of work on it. And then Tony's wife, Pam, suggested that I started up writing with a writer from Hawaii named Caroline Wright. And she had written a great article on Tony in a now defunct magazine called Listener back at that time. It's a really good article. She's a great writer. And Pam suggested that she and I collaborate and finish the book. So we did. It took 5 more years. So it took 10 years altogether to finish it, but it finally came out in 2010. So.
And was it constructed, like, did you have to interview Tony about his whole history?
Multiple times, man. I interviewed him, and Caroline interviewed him several times.
Mm-hmm.
And once we had these massive interviews and we had them transcribed, we were looking through them, and I remember thinking, we cannot construct a narrative history out of this because he's too articulate.
Mm.
He said it better than anybody else could say it. So why don't we just edit these together and put his story in his words?
Mm-hmm.
And so that determined, because he was so articulate, it determined the format of the book.
Mm-hmm.
And then once we did that, we had these interviews with other people at those various points in his life, and we did the same thing with them.
Wow.
So the only thing is there's introductions to each chapter, which are roughly chronological. And then Caroline went out on the road with Tony over one summer, and she wrote these little pieces on the road with Tony that are at the end of the chapters.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the format of the book, pretty much.
When do you think Tony made the transition from just being like one of the players to kind of being a living legend, Titan-like character? It sounds like that was already the case in the early 2000s.
Pretty early on.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty early. I remember in the 70s just hearing him for the first time, just thinking, who is this guy? You know, because he had everything. And it wasn't just me, because Benny Birchfield, who was a really great singer and musician who played with the Osborne Brothers years ago, he just passed away a few months back. But he told a story to me when I was doing research for the book. He played with Roy Orbison. And he was out with Roy Orbison on a bus trip, and he had a Walkman, and he had it plugged in. He was sitting on the bus listening to one of Tony's records. And Roy came through, and he said, "What are you listening to?" He said, "Here." So he gave him the Walkman. Roy goes to the back of the bus to his lounge back there and comes back about 15 minutes later and said, "This guy's the best singer I've ever heard."
Yeah.
So that was Roy Orbison.
I wonder what he was listening to.
It was one of Tony's early albums, probably that First Rounder album, back when his voice was so rich, But I mean, Tony had about a 12-year golden period where he recorded so many fantastic things and so many different things. He did a duet album with Ricky Skaggs. It's just perfect.
It's a perfect record. Yeah.
A solo record called Church Street Blues, which is also perfect.
Maybe the best bluegrass record to ever be made.
So good that the Punch Brothers did a track-by-track redo of it, which is
cool arrangements.
Oh, isn't it though?
Yeah, it's so interesting. Yeah,
Chris is so creative, and all those guys. And then he also did this Bluegrass album band series, which just sort of reinterpreted all these great Bill Monroe and Flat and Scruggs songs for the next generation, And great solo records like Cold on the Shoulder, Me and My Guitar, Native American. Man, he was on a real tear there.
Yeah. It seems like, from what I've heard from other people who've studied him, he was really a student of the tradition as well, and like the nuance and really digging into the subtlety of especially Clarence White's play. I'm curious. Curious what your thoughts are about his studies with John Carlini.
That's interesting, man. Of course, we deal with that in the book, but I think a whole lot of it was that he was going to be playing something when he went with David Grisman that was kind of out of his wheelhouse, And it still had this bluegrass energy, but it had a totally closed-shaped chord approach that he was not used to playing. And so he had to have some direction with that. And I think Carlini kind of showed him what was possible with jazz chord voicing. And he took that and sort of did his own thing with what he would do. I mean, he would take some of these things, shapes like that, and shape them into what he knew, what he needed out of it. And he would do these absolutely beautiful thing. Not a lot of open chords though in that stuff. It's mostly up the neck, you know.
It seemed to add a new flavor to his
Absolutely.
music after that point.
Yeah, and I don't know. I don't think that John would tell you. We did interview John, and I think I remember him saying, I really ever remember showing Tony any tunes or anything like that. We would just get together and play, and I might say, hey, try this voicing right here. Have you ever heard this? You ever done this? You know?
Wow. So it wasn't like formal training in some way. It was just because they recorded that record together, River Sweet.
River Sweet, yeah. There's also a great live recording from around that time over at somebody's house in North Carolina. You got to check that out. I'll send you a copy of it.
I would love to hear that. Yeah. Wow.
Absolutely
yeah,
great.
like that. That's not on
Absolutely
streaming
great.
platforms.
No, there's all these Tony tapers. They have a little community out there. They pass around these different recordings.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
It's really neat to talk to you because you are both an amazing player and you have this historian roots. So it's, you've kind of cataloged a huge part of this history.
Well, I wish I've been trying to write a book on bluegrass since the 70s for the last several years. And it's such a huge topic, and I don't want it to be 1,200 pages long.
How do you approach that?
Man, I've gone back and forth on formats, but I think what I figured out finally is that I'm just going to take a more informal approach to it. And I wanted it to be volume 2 of Neil Rosenberg's Bluegrass: A History. And that ain't going to happen. Neil is so good, and his book passes academic muster as well as a popular history of bluegrass. It's the best one that's ever been written. And I kind of wanted to do that approach at first, but now I'm not so sure. There's a lot of other sources that I want to bring in because bluegrass is a rich thing right now, and it means a lot of different things to a lot of people. Sometimes people call stuff bluegrass that most of us that know bluegrass really well would say, well, that may be bluegrass adjacent,
What would you count in that category?
Oh, man. Well, in the preface to the 20th anniversary of Neil's book, he did this little preface, and it was about 3 or 4 pages. And one of the things he noticed in 2005, which was right after Oh Brother, is that there were a lot of music forms that were suddenly being called bluegrass. And that was everything from Gilliam Welch and David Rawlings to blues-oriented things, to old spirituals, folk tunes, old-time music, things that bluegrass was inspired by, Bill Monroe was inspired by. But now people were calling them bluegrass, that didn't really know any better. And he called it the bluegrass metaphor. And I think that's a really good way to look at it. I still look at it that way. And I think there's nothing wrong with it at all, because it helps, people go down this wormhole and they find out about Tony Ross and people like that. Doc, oh my gosh, you wouldn't call Doc bluegrass, but a lot of people think he is.
You wouldn't call Doc Watson bluegrass?
I really wouldn't. He didn't either. He called it traditional plus.
Traditional plus?
That's what he called it. Because he played everything, from Deep River Blues. Named his son after Merle Travis. Wow. But he also could flat pick a fiddle tune like nobody's business. Yeah. And I got to know Jack Williams, who played with Doc in the 50s back at a little American Legion in Johnson City, Tennessee, where ETSU was, and I taught there for a number of years. And Jack would tell the stories, and he said they didn't have a fiddle player in the band. So when he would go get Doc, or somebody would go to get Doc from North Wilkesboro, bring him to Johnson City every Friday and Saturday night. And he would play for the dancers, but he would play all those fiddle tunes on guitar. And it wasn't acoustic guitar, it was a regular old electric guitar. It was a
no kidding.
Les Paul, yeah.
No kidding.
Wore out the Les Paul. Yeah. And when Ralph Rensler came over there in the 60s looking for different people, somebody told him about Doc, and he said, won't you play me one? He pulled out the electric guitar. He said, no, not that. This is a folk boom, This is a folk scare. So he said, well, I play that old acoustic sometimes. And
Yeah.
What a great guy. What a great
Incredible musician. That's surprising to me that you wouldn't call that bluegrass. Who coined bluegrass? Do you know?
Well, no, that's one of the things that we talk about in my course. I'm teaching a history of bluegrass called Bluegrass Traditions at Appalachian State online right now. Yeah,
That's awesome.
and one of the things we go into, Neil's book is a textbook, and a big part of Neil's book is how bluegrass got its name. And of course, it came from Bill Monroe's band. He called his band the Bluegrass Boys because he was from Kentucky,
Yeah.
the bluegrass state.
Yeah.
And he always did it with two words, bluegrass, like they do in Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
But in the 50s, after bluegrass got its start, and it got its start by the Stanley Brothers ripping off Bill Monroe and recording one of his songs, and he really hated it. But they did Molly and Tim Brooks before he could release his version because of the recording ban back in the 40s. 1948, bluegrass gets its start as somebody playing that style of music. And the style of music they played was the one band of Bill Monroe's that he had from 45 to 48, which was, everybody calls the band. It's the one that had Lester Flatt, Earl Scruggs, Chubby Wise, Bill Monroe, Howard Watts. That band set the standard. Bobby Osborne heard that standard, 45 to 48. And Flatt and Scruggs left in 48 to start their own band. And, people like Bobby Osborne heard that band live in Dayton, Ohio in 1947 and said, this is what I want to do the rest of my life.
Mm-hmm.
Stanley Brothers heard it, said, got to learn this style. Whatever this is, I love this. We got to learn it.
Mm-hmm.
So that started bluegrass.
So it's only like 80 years old.
It's roughly the same age as bebop.
Yeah. That's wild. And was the direct predecessor old time, or I guess it was all of this stuff? It was like traditional.
When Monroe came to the Opry in 1939, there were a lot of old time, what we call old time country string bands,
Mm-hmm.
but they played in different keys than he did. He played in really unusual keys like B and B flat that nobody played in the old time world, and they played faster,
Mm-hmm.
and they played, it was higher pitched too, because his voice was higher pitched.
Right.
So, a lot of the singers like Bobby Osborne and Pee Wee Lambert, who played with the Stanley Brothers, they took their cue from Bill Monroe. So
Yeah.
it's been high pitched music ever since then.
Yeah.
Got to have a great tenor singer to have
Yeah.
good bluegrass. So it came out of the old time tradition, but also Monroe was heavily influenced by blues music. We know that he heard Arnold Schultz, who just went in the Hall of Fame, African American from Western Kentucky. He said he heard him play blues, and that influenced him.
Wow.
And so the first song that he did was a version of Jimmy Rogers' Mule Skinner Blues
Mm-hmm.
on the Opry, which is great for guitar players because he kicks it off with a.
G runs.
Yeah,
At the very beginning.
he did the very first G run. Bill Monroe did. He played guitar on that cut. He didn't play mandolin.
Wow.
So yeah. A lot of people say, "Oh, Lester Flatt started the bluegrass." No. Bill Monroe was doing it before he was. So.
How do you think about yourself I count you in the pantheon. Is that a weird thing to?
Yeah, because I don't think that way at all. No, I'm just still. I still think of myself as that 17-year-old kid slowing down records so I could learn Earl Scruggs'
You're a
banjo.
student of it still.
Yeah. I hope to keep that, and still think of it as, because you will kill the joy for something. That's one thing Doc said. He said, the quickest way to kill the joy for anything you got is do it for a living.
Yeah.
And so I've tried to vigorously go back and rediscover what got me into the music.
Yeah.
And if I can do that, and maybe it's listening to an album like 0044,
Yeah.
I'll go back and listen to it and play along with it every few months just to remind myself, oh yeah, what was it you liked about this so much,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and that constant rediscovery is real important. So
Yeah. What's keeping you excited about the genre now? Like any new stuff you're listening to, or?
So many good players, man. It's like bluegrass guitar was a rarity back when lead guitar. When I started playing, there were a handful of players. There was Norman Blake and Doc, you heard a lot of his stuff, even though he really wasn't playing any bluegrass. But Tony, Clarence had died in 1973 before I started playing. And there were a few other players like Dan Crary who played in the Bluegrass Alliance, this group in Kentucky, before Tony joined the band. And Tony actually took some of his tunes and some of his stuff that he did. Dan did a version of Freeborn Man, but he did it in E position, but he did it like Jerry Reed, where you did that, well, I was born in the Southland. Like that stuff I was doing. And, and where Tony would do, well, I was born in the Southland. Yeah, and he'd go. And he recorded that on his very first record that he did on King Bluegrass. It was originally recorded for a Japanese guy named Sabo Watanabe, and it was released on King Bluegrass in '74. So.
Wow.
But yeah, it's changed a lot since then. And now these young kids, dadgummem, these youngsters. Yeah. Well, but when Brian came along and started playing so fast with Ricky Skaggs,
Yeah.
It opened that whole world up, and now it's like the bar is there, to entry level playing bluegrass leads. Yeah. You got to be able to play 160 beats a minute, Yeah. That ain't me, I don't do that. I never did. I could play some things fast, but I'm not a speed guy, I'd rather focus on tone and stuff that I have more control over. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And I don't have the technique that those guys do, like Brian and Jake Workman. Jake was at this camp, and it was really cool hearing him play with Julian Lage and people like that. And I got to pick with him too. So, but I was thinking too about mandolin playing. When I started in bluegrass, it's like the bar was Doyle Lawson. His playing was like, and it's still great. Doyle is just such a great player. And I had never heard Bill Monroe. I had to go backwards from Doyle Lawson to discover Bill Monroe and Frank Wakefield and all these people. But then now, the entry-level bar for mandolin players in bluegrass is Chris Thiele and Sierra Hull. It's gotten that high. So I see that changing, and that it's only a good thing, man. And all these players too, like Sierra, they're going through conservatories and schools of music, which didn't happen. In fact, there was nothing like that for us, I did play in the first ETSU bluegrass band back in 1981, but that was when Jack Tottle was just starting teaching a few classes at ETSU, and he put a few of the people there together to do a little band. And so, but those schools like that, this wasn't really a thing back in the 70s when I started. And, we also learned by listening more, I think, than by tab. And eventually, of course, now YouTube. Everybody learns through YouTube. It's so easy. They have the slowdowner built into it now. Yeah. And so I'm old enough to where I remember slowing down 16 records, LPs to 16 speed.
Would it pitch it up?
It would pitch it down, but it would be an octave, same pitch.
Oh, so you just do half speed.
You could hear Earl Scruggs' banjo licks. You could figure out every one of them.
No kidding.
Just like the slowdowner on YouTube.
Yeah. Pitch it way down, and then you just play it up the octave.
Yeah. But, golly, man, Billy Strings is so cool. I just love what he's able to do and has been able to do, and he loves bluegrass. That's what kills me. He's got the same passion for it I do and did, and it's obvious from the stuff he plays and the people he listens to and talks about all the time and pays homage to. There's not a lot of people that will go out of their way, to pay homage to a person that is set, just do a lot of their songs because they just passed away or he found out about them and just loves the music, And he's not the only one. There's
there's an enormous population of people who are now switched on to bluegrass. In large part, like the new wave is because of Billy. Like there's like millions of people now who are like what's this bluegrass? What's
I
this
know.
kid
What
doing?
is this stuff?
Yeah.
That wasn't the case a few years ago because I taught this class at Appalachian State. I do it every other year. And these are grad students. This is a grad course. And it was only about 3 times back, so that would have been six to 8 years ago. It was before the pandemic that I first started mentioning Billy. And I would put a few of his videos on there. And before that, didn't have any idea, you know. And now, it's like half of my students are like in the class because of Billy Strings. You know.
Yeah.
And I just think it's cool. I just think he's doing wonderful things. He's a great guy too. You know, super nice guy, very genuine, and that part is real important because bluegrass is nothing if not genuine.
Yeah.
It's totally,
100%.
it is what it is. You know.
He represents it.
Yeah, and he represents that.
Yeah.
Just who he is represents that.
Yeah.
And Molly Tuttle did great things for bluegrass, you know, and she still loves it. And people like Trey Hensley was telling, you know, Trey's from East Tennessee, and I've known him since he was really, really small, and he could play like that then too. It's just insane. Yeah, he's been able to play fast for a long time and really creative. You know, great technique.
Yeah.
And I think we're in a real exciting time for bluegrass.
Yeah.
And you know, somebody like Alison is still around playing and going out and playing really, really cool bluegrass at the same time that, you know, Billy's out here packing arenas too. It's who would not want to be around these days. And that's one reason in my class too, I go up to the present. And I want to do that in this book if I finish it too, because I think, you know, in many ways, since Oh Brother, we're kind of in a golden age for bluegrass.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. I think you're right. What's I know Blue Highway put out a single recently. Is that indicating that there's a record coming out, or what's the story there?
Yeah, actually, we're still with Down the Road Records, which is used to be Rounder. We did 10 albums, I think, for Rounder. So the Rounder guys sold their company, I think, to Universal, and then, but the founders, the Rounder founders, which was Ken Irwin and Marion Layton and Bill Nolan, were still involved, and they really wanted to be more involved. And so here they are this late in their career, they decided to start a new record label called Down the Road. And I said, well, do you think we want to have us on it? And he said, yeah, sure, we'd love to, you know.
That's cool.
And so the vision there is just to put out these singles, which everybody's doing now. And we went in the studio and did a couple of songs. We've been doing original material for years and did a couple of originals. Going to do 2 more next year. But we have an album in the can that is a live album. We had a 30th anniversary show last January, or this January in 2025 at ETSU in Johnson City. And I was the artist in residence at that point in the program up there. So it was really cool. Dan Boner engineered it and mixed it, and a lot of the students there helped us record it when he did it live. So we'd never done a live record before, but it's going to be a 2-volume record too, I think. So
wow, cool.
And they want a project.
Yeah.
By that time, there may not be any CDs. I don't know, but we'll see. So yeah, maybe vinyl. We'll see.
Yeah, we're looking forward to hearing that. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, it's gonna be great.
Well, so, you wanna play us another tune here before we wrap up?
Yeah. I can do. Let me see. While I'm here, this year is the epitome of the D18s.
This is.
And the D28s.
It's the 37, right?
37. That was the year that those are generally considered the best ones. I like my 34 better, but it was a real early year. And
what's the difference?
They hadn't really figured a lot of stuff out, so the neck on mine is a lot thicker than this one. They had been doing it enough by this time. The first, herringbones were done in the early 30s, and they didn't put them in the catalog till 34. That was the year mine came out, so mine's from the first year. by 37, they had done enough of them to where they standardized a lot of the stuff that they were doing. So every one of them has the same shaped neck. The keys really work great. And mainly it's the box itself. All of these early 30s have what they call advanced bracing, where the X brace comes right up to the sound hole. And you can see how close that is right there on this. Later on, they moved them back. And that was a design feature they didn't think much about. But later on, they realized that was very important to the sound. So,
Big difference.
so later on, when they did like the Authentic series and all that, and some of the other models, they moved them back up.
Back up.
Yeah. So most of the Martin Dreads now have advanced bracing, and they're also scallop braces. They cut away the wood inside of them. So.
And they weren't doing that in 33.
They were.
They were.
They did the scallops all the way from 34 to 45.
Oh, they stopped doing the scallop braces.
Scott stopped doing them. So all of the 50s guitars and 60s guitars were not scallop braces.
Why is that?
Who knows why they make these decisions? I don't think anybody really knows why they did that. It was just another process, and it took time.
Manufacturing.
I think that's it, you know. And, you know, there were, like in the 70s too, Martin was famous for having a lifetime warranty, which was very cool.
Yeah.
But they started getting so many people sending them back for repairs that starting about 1970, they started putting these real thick bridge plates on underneath. And they beefed up the braces, and those early 70s guitars kind of sound like really bad wooden boxes, you know. But there are people that take those, though, like my friend Ron Stewart. I mean, what he does is put a new bridge on it with a new bridge plate, and he takes the braces out and rescallops them and everything. So
why do the new ones sound so? I mean, the new ones sound okay, but they don't sound anything like this.
They will. Some of them.
You think it's purely an age thing?
I think some of the ones now that are being put out will sound like this in 40 years or so, because for example, I saw 2 or 3 of the Authentics. The Authentic line is built exactly like these. Okay. So they have all the same thing, and there's no reason why they won't sound as good.
It's just a matter of time.
Just a matter of time.
I thought it was a lacquering thing. I thought that as they've kind of progressed as a company,
I've heard people say that. I've also had a friend of mine who said that. He said the key to it was that they dry out, and that they're looser. They become looser over time, and he thinks that's why they sound so good. Yeah. And he builds his, he says, looser, and they do sound great. So I don't know. Nobody really knows. Nobody really knows.
It's the mystery of the pre-wars.
So this is a song called Smitten Kitten, and it was inspired by a friend's little kitten playing. And I watched it play for a while, and he climbed up the curtains and then slid all the way down the curtains, you know. So, and you're going to hear that in this tune. So,
yeah, it's interesting to see learning about how Tony used to tune too. His
oh my gosh,
tuning was immaculate, and he would tune to the song in a way, like whatever the chord was.
He would, and one of all the things that Tony did great. Tuning the guitar may be the best thing, and he wouldn't use it. Of course, this is before tuners, or portable tuners like this that clip the guitar. He said, "I don't have any contempt for the devices, but
it's a good tuning voice."
But he would take a tuning fork. It was an A fork, and he would sit there and pop it, and then tune his A string to that. Usually here or here. And tune it to that, and then he would tune all the other strings to that string, to the A string. And his whole thing was, you don't want to tune it where it's right in tune. It's got to be in tune in a combination of keys. So the strings have to be in tune in relation to all these other ones, based on what you're playing.
You know what he would test? Was his go-to like just play a G chord or play a...
Usually G. I've seen him take a string or a guitar that was detuned, whether it was the antique or whatever he was playing, and he would tune that thing. He's got 5 seconds to go on stage, because Tony always showed up at the last minute. And he would tune that thing up. Okay, that's it. And he was ready to go.
Yeah.
And it was perfect. It's like, that's all ears.
Yeah.
That's all ears.
Yeah.
So.
Satellite dishes.
Yeah, exactly. So, I think I got a little closer this time. So. Rolling. So I think a lot of this stuff goes back to when I was a banjo player.
Yeah.
And it's got that, which is not cross picking. A lot of people call cross picking, but I think of that as more like George Scheffler and where you got a 1-2-3 1-2-3 1-2 roll, or a 1-3-2 1-3-2 1-2 roll. And that different people did it different ways in early bluegrass, but this is more of a.
Oh yeah.
And then this other song. So it's got a roll to it, but it's not. It's more like a banjo roll, not.
And when you say 1-3-2, you mean?
I'm talking about the string.
Yep.
1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 1.
Yeah.
Or 1 3 2 1 3 1 3 2 1 3 2 1 3 1 3.
Yeah.
You see, the difference is subtle, but it is a difference. Yeah, Keith Whitley played the 1-3-2, and George Scheffler and all the other cross pickers played 1-2-3. Yeah.
What's this tune in?
This one's called Margaret Falls, and then I've got one that I put with it called Horseshoe Bend.
Cool.
So. Okay, let's see if I can finish this. What a cool guitar.
You make it sound good, man.
Oh, dude.
You make it sound good.
I bet anybody can make this sound good.
I don't know about that.
True house.
Wow. Tim, thanks so much for being on the
Hey,
show,
man.
man.
Thanks,
I appreciate
Spencer.
you.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I enjoyed
you.
it. Thank you, man. Thank you so much.